Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather together as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of television, and a few other things here and there along the way. And you know, I go into the shoe store of life and gently massaging my arches as he slips on a brand new imagination. It's Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
Oh, wow, John. You know, I have to start this morning with some sad news.
Oh, dear.
Pussy Galore, that character from the James Bond movie, yep. Goldfinger, played by Honor Blackman, passed away.
I did not hear that.
It dropped about 10 minutes ago.
Oh, no.
She was also Kathy Gale in The Avengers, not the Avengers you're thinking, but the Avengers TV series.
Yes.
She was 94 years old, and she passed away peacefully in her house in Sussex of natural causes.
Oh, well, that is sad news to start off today with. That is unfortunate to hear, especially, you know, in the midst of everything right now when all we really want to hear is some
But
good
it is,
news
I mean,
stuff.
She lived a great life.
94, man.
94, and she was, of course, one of the most capable, and she dished it out as good as Bond gave it. So here's to her, and I love Goldfinger. It's time for a rewatch now.
It would have been great if she could have been around to see the debut of one last one. But
I know.
It's unfortunate. But actually, you know, I've been meaning to ask you, and we got a lot of stuff to cover today, but I wanted to ask you, like, you and Elizabeth doing some wine watching, stuff like that. But
yes.
what else are you doing right now to kind of keep yourself busy around the house during the lockdown? Besides, cataloging all your hot toys and things like that.
Well, you know, I have been working on the special features for the Scream Factory release of the film I produced, Hills Run Red. So I've delivered, I've been finishing and delivering. I'm doing 12 separate pieces, and then director Dave Parker is also doing pieces. We kind of split up the work. I'm doing the retrospective pieces, and then he's gone back and done new interviews with some of the key personnel involved in the movie. And it's been really fun. It's been fun. I went back into the dailies, and I've been looking. I kept all my dailies discs, and it's very strange looking at yourself 12 years ago. Man, 12 years is rough, brah. But it's been fun. So I've been doing that, and then I've also been working on this Netflix project that has not yet been announced. Doing just a little bit of editing on this project that debuts fourth quarter of 2020. But what's interesting is, what we do, you and I, we're lucky that we've got all of this equipment, and, you can work on the documentary that you're producing, that you're directing. And so I think we're fortunate in that it's amazing. I think trying to be productive is a lifestyle choice. Like, there are some days I don't want to get out of bed, but being on YouTube, I mean, I keep getting letters from people that say to both you and I that they've really appreciated you and I staying on the airwaves or staying on the interwebs, because a lot of people look forward to the shows. And I love doing this show in the morning with you. April 14th, John, is my 5-year anniversary on YouTube, and the first time I was on YouTube,
I remember,
on April 14th, 2015, was with you and John Schnepp on AMC Heroes, episode 6.
Episode
6. I just tweeted it yesterday. I tweeted
That's
at
crazy.
you.
That was 5 years ago.
Dude, 5 years ago. So you and I have been doing stuff on YouTube over the past 5 years.
5 years. It's crazy. It's funny because I recently, maybe about a month ago, Facebook reminded me that it was 5 years ago. This is a few weeks ago. It was 5 years ago that I'd put up this post on Facebook announcing this new show we were doing called AMC Heroes. And it was kind of crazy seeing that. Hey, listen, I do want to let you guys know about something for those of you who may or may not follow me on social media. Last week, we tried out doing this watch party of Avengers Infinity War, and it was a lot of fun. And a bunch of people asked me to make sure we do it again, so we're going to do it again. So we're doing it again today. So for those of you who don't follow me on social media, I put this up on social media yesterday. Later today at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, you can look up what that is in your local time. We are going to do a Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse live watch party on Netflix Party. Of course, you have to, number one, make sure you have a Netflix account, and number two, you have to make sure you have to go and you have to go and make sure you install the Netflix Party extension in your Chrome browser in advance. So it's the same deal as last time. We're going to do that at 2 p.m. today. At about 1:30, a little after 1:30, I will put up on my Twitter. So make sure you guys are following me on Twitter, simply at John Campea. You can see that. I will put up the link to the watch party, and then at 2 o'clock, we will get rolling. I hope you guys will join us for that. Okay, guys. With all that down and out of the way, we've got a lot of things to talk about here today, including some bigger stories, but we've got to start off the top with this. You know, in a little bit, we're going to be talking about a potential release schedule conflict coming up where basically Captain Marvel 2 and Flash are scheduled to go head-to-head, basically 1 week apart from each other. In 2022, I believe, is when they're scheduled to come out. But, you know, before we get there, we got to talk about something else, unfortunately. The interweb is a marvelous and sometimes cesspool of a place, and a video emerged yesterday that allegedly showed Ezra Miller choking a female fan and throwing her to the ground. Now, I went and I read, first of all, the headline of this that said that he taken and he choke slammed this woman to the ground, and you can find it online there. And I thought, oh my God, seriously? First of all, that's shocking to me because, not to put it indelicately, but Ezra Miller is a twerp. He looks like a strong breeze could blow him over. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I went and watched the video myself. Now, let me say this first and foremost. If this video is real, like it was actually Ezra Miller, which, by the way, there's been no official confirmation that that's actually Ezra Miller in the video, but it probably is. But if it is Ezra Miller, and that is actually him assaulting a girl, then F that guy and whatever bus he came in on. You know, I mean, that's obvious. That's clear. F this guy and whatever bus he came in on. That is the clear thing. However, Rob, upon watching the video yesterday, late last night, I watched this video. My very first reaction was, there's anybody who thinks this is real? That was my first reaction. Now listen, let me be very, very clear here. It might be real. That could actually be Ezra Miller actually assaulting a girl. And if it is, I stated right up front, F that guy in the bus he came in on. Absolutely. However, I gotta say that all that being said, I have my doubts that this is real. I have my doubts this is real. And it comes from 4 very important things that make me doubt its legitimacy. Doubt number 1, I already kind of explained it. I'm pretty sure the girl in that video could kick the crap out of Ezra Miller. I'm just going to throw that out there. So there's that. So doubt number 1 on that point. Doubt number 2, and this is always a huge one to me. Video's 5 or 6 seconds long. I never ever trust a 5 to 6 second video. That to me screams of purposefully editing something to take it completely out of real context and just to see one quick snapshot and then build an entire philosophy around that. So whenever I see that there's a video clip that's 5 or 6 seconds long, it almost doesn't matter what's in the clip. I'm instantly dubious of it. So I'm dubious of that. The third thing to me was everybody seemed to be giggling in the damn thing. So, I mean, whatever. There's some people can make an argument, well, you know, when you're really nervous and scared, sometimes you can giggle. Hey, I do that sometimes. I laugh at terrible situations sometimes. That's my coping mechanism. So it's maybe true. But the other thing that really got to me is I read this headline, like, throws her to the ground. Dude, he almost caressingly, gently lowers this girl to the ground in a very slow motion, kind of easy, almost gentle way. And anyway, I'm just saying, look, it could be real. And it could be Ezra Miller being an absolute, unequivocal dick. And if it is, F that guy and all that kind of stuff. I'm just saying, from an average viewer's point of view who clicked on this because of this headline, I looked at it, I'm like, I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. Again, it might be, I'm not clearing Ezra Miller's name. You guys know that I've been saying for a while, Rob, that I don't even think this movie's going to happen. You know this, right? I've been saying this forever. It very well could happen, and I hope it does, but I've had my doubts that this movie was going to happen anyway, at any point. But anyway, that's how I saw it. Rob, you also had a chance to check out this video. What were your first impressions of it?
Well, I kind of feel the way you do. What I don't understand is why does it cut off where it cut off? You know, if he's going to take her down in some chokehold, why does the video end there? You know, anybody who's shooting a scandalous video, we all know from TMZ, you don't turn your video off. You know, it seems like, come on, man. I mean, what's happening here? Of course, I've read people on Reddit are saying I was at this convention and he spit on people and was escorted out by security, and I'm like, well, then why did the video guy just stop running his video there? Any good documentarian worth their salt, and everybody is now, John. I mean, come on, people put up their phones at YouTube concerts to film the entire concert. You think some dude watching some scandalous thing happening with a guest at a convention in Iceland is not going to keep his camera on while this whole incident plays out? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I again, and I think I cannot emphasize this enough.
But it
Let's
could be
clear.
Could be
yeah,
real.
It could be. And if it turns out it is, and I am not excluding the possibility that it is, I'm not saying that's outside the realm of possibility. I'm just saying, being honest, like my first reaction was I looked at it and I thought, really? People are taking this seriously? And maybe it does. And if it is, F this guy and the bus he came in on. Let me be very clear. I am not, because I know someone out there is going to try to twist my words here, Rob, and try to make it sound like I'm trying to defend Ezra Miller. No, I'm just saying I don't think that's what actually happened. Because if it is, F the guy. But,
yeah,
you know, listen, and I am a fan of Ezra Miller as an actor. I am a fan of Ezra Miller as an actor. I think he plays the Flash very well. I liked him in the Fantastic Beasts movie. I think he's a good little actor. I do. Of course, I lost some of my respect for Ezra Miller back during that whole time when he was trying to undermine the directors of Flash, and he went to WB and said, no, take my pitch for Flash. So the director said, you're actually taking the actor's pitch over ours. Okay, we're out. And they left. And I lost some respect for Ezra Miller, but I was still a fan of his as an actor. And if this is true, well then, there you go. But if it's not, and I really have a feeling it's not, I have a feeling this is something that's being taken way out of context. And if it's not, then F this guy. But listen, I wanted to ask you guys, I was going to do something else as the question of the day. But I needed to ask you, and by the way, I don't believe in any of this TMZ stuff. The only reason I'm even remotely interested in talking about this particular topic is because it will have a direct ramification on a movie we're supposed to be getting, which of course is the Flash movie, which we're going to be talking about in just a little bit. If it wasn't for the fact, like if Ezra Miller hadn't been in any movies in 10 years, I wouldn't talk about the story. I wouldn't care about the story. But this is a story that will obviously have direct ramifications on a movie we're supposed to be getting here in the DCEU, also known as The Flash. And that's why it makes it interesting. So I wanted to know what you guys thought about this. And I have not looked at this poll since I put it up. But just before the show started, I put up a poll on my Twitter simply asking you guys this. And let's bring it up now. You guys will be looking at this for the first time with me. And I simply asked you guys, here's the question. The Ezra Miller choking the girl video is going around is clearly disturbing, but considering it's a 5-second video, the giggling and the slow, almost gentle way she's taking the ground, do you believe that this is real? About almost 1,500 of you guys have voted since I put this thing up. 30.1% of you are looking at it and you're saying, yeah, I think that's real. I think this dude's really assaulting a person, and I think he just got caught on tape. 30.1% of you guys are saying that. 69.9% of you guys are saying, no, this is not really. Clearly, if you look at everything going on in the video, this clearly is not actually what's going on. But again, none of us know, but that's where it stands right now. 30% of you roughly are saying that you think the video is actually real and the events being portrayed are as they appear. 70% of you guys saying, no, we're not buying it. We don't think that's real. Anyway, I'm going to leave that poll up for the next 24 hours. You guys can go over there and certainly, guys, jump down into the comments section and leave your thoughts there. And obviously, we'll be touching on this a little bit as we come up to another topic in just a little bit. All right. With that down, let's move on to the second off the top that we need to talk about here, and that is this. You know, this is a topic I touched on this weekend, Rob, on my open mic, but I knew this was big enough and important enough that we had to bring it over here and talk about it on the John Campea Show here today. You know, we've been talking over the past couple of weeks about how the fact that the movie theater industry is hurting right now. The movie theater industry is hurting right now. There's no doubt about it. And the theaters, all of them, are getting the crap kicked out of them. The studios are getting the crap kicked out of them. Hell, a lot of people outside of the movie industry are, but we're here to talk about the movie industry. We talk about these big topics within the confines of how they affect this specific realm. And within this specific realm, the theaters are getting the absolute crap kicked out of them. And we heard, and we talked a little while ago, Rob, about the fact that AMC could be in a little bit of trouble. They could be in a little bit of trouble. Well, Friday, a report dropped that painted the picture as more than just a little bit of trouble. It actually paints a picture that it becomes doubtful that AMC theaters will ever open their doors again. This is from S&P S&P Global put out a report where they downgraded AMC's rating from a B- to a triple C, or basically doubtful that they're going to avoid basically collapsing. Some of the highlights from the report are this. This is from S&P. We do not believe AMC has sufficient sources of liquidity to cover its expected negative cash flow past midsummer, and we believe the company will likely breach its 6 times net senior secured leverage covenant, when tested on September 30th, 2020, absent of a waiver from its lenders. Even after significantly lowering its fixed cost and capital spending requirements, because remember, they laid off all the staff, even the CEO has been furloughed, all that kind of stuff. We only expect the company's liquidity sources to last through midsummer and are revising our assessment of AMC's liquidity to weak. The company will likely pursue incremental financing through the CARES Act or its lenders, but it is unclear when or if it will be able to secure additional liquidity. Rob, the report also goes on to say that they expect AMC to breach and not open. Now, to put this a little bit more into context, my belief, Rob, what I said over the weekend on Open Mic was basically, I think at this point you have to believe it is a very real, what was just a couple of months ago would have seemed impossible, that it is now a very legitimate possibility AMC may never open its doors again. I believe they will, because I believe that the movie studios cannot allow the biggest movie theater chain in the world to go under, because it will kill them. So I believe at some point, Warner Brothers, Disney, Paramount, Universal, Lionsgate, A24, everybody is going to get together and say, we have to come up with a plan to keep AMC alive, because if they go under, we're dead. And to put things in perspective, Rob, I put up this tweet yesterday. You know, a lot of people are still thinking, we'll just put their movies on Disney Plus and everything will be fine. To put it in context, if you take up the entire total year's worth of subscription revenue that Disney's going to make on Disney Plus this year, Aladdin and Captain Marvel by themselves made more money than Disney will make in an entire calendar year on its subscription revenue. And that's not even counting all the operating costs, marketing costs, production costs, all that kind. It's not even taking any of that in consideration. So if you take that out of both, you're seeing a situation where just 2 movies made more money in the theaters, a lot of it in AMC theaters, than Disney Plus is going to make an entire year worth of revenue. The studios need AMC to be alive. They need them to be alive. So while I think it is very, very possible here, Rob, that we could see AMC close its doors, I don't think it'll happen, because there's just too many other third parties that will suffer a domino effect that will hurt them badly if they close. I don't think the studios are going to come to AMC's rescue because out of the goodness of their heart. I think the studios may, if it needs to come to this, I think the studios will come to AMC's rescue because it's in their own self-interests and they need it to happen. But Rob, we've seen this deteriorating situation. You've seen this latest report, and I know that you read it. What do you make of this whole thing, and what do you think the outcome of this is going to be?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, think about it. It's not just the theaters and the studios. What about the candy companies that AMC buys candy from? Soda, the popcorn companies, the supply chains, the truck drivers that bring all this stuff all over the country to AMC theaters. I mean, they're like, and this is just a microcosm of countless other businesses across the world that are finding themselves in the same place. You hear of, I read about a landlord in New York City. He owned 15 buildings, John, and he went through and he just went through and posted no one has to pay rent for April. A guy owns 15 buildings. And that's a huge hit for his company, but he's just like, you know what? I mean, it's better off for me to take care of my tenants than to start eviction proceedings across my 15 buildings for people that aren't deadbeat tenants. And there's got to be, people are going to either have to step in, they're going to have to, like this article that you were talking about says, unless their debt is forgiven. This is just what's going to happen across the world, because if it doesn't, there's going to be many things that, it's like you said, it's going to be a domino effect. And the studios, like you also said, cannot allow this to happen because, look, they got to get movies back in theaters. And can you imagine if AMC is shuttered? Well, what? Who's going to step in and reopen them to put movies back in theaters? I mean, they need their employees, they need their infrastructure, they need their facilities. It's not like, look, Disney does a great job running theme parks, but they don't want to take over a whole theater chain to make sure that Black Widow and Eternals get to be in movie theaters. I mean,
by the way, they're not in a financial position to do it, even if they wanted to. They're not in a financial position to do it.
No. And I think, like with everything else, we're seeing something where it's got to be all hands on deck. And to fire up the economy, nobody wants the economy shuttered. But on the other hand, what really disturbs me is how people are starting to talk about, well, statistically, what's 100,000 people dying? I mean, come on. And it's crazy to me that we're suddenly hearing that kind of talk too, because, wow, once we devalue human life, we're in a world of hurt more so than any virus is going to put us in. But we really, I think that whether it's the studios, somebody is going to come in because, like you said, they can't allow this to happen.
Yeah, it's just in too many other people's best interest. Now, Rob, a lot of people have understandably been asking me, well, John, I mean, if AMC's the biggest theater chain in the world, how come they're on the brink of collapse, whereas these other chains that are smaller don't seem to be? First of all, the other chains are hurting. They're all hurting. Yeah. I mean, make no mistake about that. But the reason AMC is in the precarious situation that it's in is because it was a perfect storm of crap. It was the perfect storm they got caught in. See, for the last number of years, from the days that even I was still there, AMC has been in a years-long program of, number one, acquiring new theaters, which they did the last couple of years. They've acquired a bunch of new theaters. Number two, they have been upgrading a hell of a lot of their theaters to the leather recliner, plush seating, installing the prime theaters, all that kind of stuff. So another huge expenditure. And of course, getting AMC A-List up and running, which cost them millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in losses for the first number of quarters because they knew that's what would happen. And Rob, just this last quarter, AMC A-List actually got into the black and started to make a profit. But all that expansion and infrastructure building and all this stuff that AMC has been investing in had brought them to this perfect point where they were at $5 billion in debt. AMC Theaters is in $5 billion of debt. Not million, billion. And they understood that, they knew that, and now is when it was going to start to turn around, and they were going to start to be able to reap the benefits of all that investment that they made. And that, Rob, was the moment. That was the moment that that the lockdown had to happen, and it left them with their pants down. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It left them with their pants down. And it left them being incredibly and particularly vulnerable and exposed. Whereas a lot of the other theaters are not in that sort of a position, and they're getting the crap kicked out of them too. So, yeah, this is a huge story, Rob, and this is going to have ramifications for the industry as a whole, and it's going to be really interesting to see if, number one, do debtors give, do they give forgiveness documents? Do we get other parties stepping in? Do we get new investors to step in and offer a bunch of financial cash to keep everything running? Do the studios need to step in? I just got to believe at some point, Rob, because of all the reasons you mentioned as well, I just got to believe at some point there's going to be enough people who would be negatively affected by an AMC theater shutting down that they will have to collectively come up with a plan to make sure they stay up and running, because Disney can't afford to buy them. Nobody wants to get into a nationwide theater ownership situation. It's just far too expensive. It's a razor-thin margin of profit for anybody. Nobody wants to be in that business. So it's going to take something. Guys, the question we have here for you is, how do you think this whole thing's going to resolve? How do you think it even got to this situation? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's move into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form that you can fill out with your topic or question. It's totally free. And once you fill it out, hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get in to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Ahmed Jacobs, who writes, where'd Ahmed go? There he is. Ahmed Jacobs, who writes, I personally liked Birds of Prey, but it wasn't nearly as good as I was hoping it would be. I know it only made $200 million and lost the studio a ton of money, so I was surprised when I heard that Cathy Yan, who is the director of Birds of Prey, was already developing the next movie and that it's going to revolve around Harley and her relationship with Poison Ivy. Is another Harley Quinn movie actually going to happen? All right, thanks for sending that in, man. And yes, the first Harley Quinn Birds of Prey movie, I'll be honest with you. To me, it's the first DCEU connected movie that I actually just flat out didn't like. I mean, Suicide Squad was a hot mess of a movie, but I ended up having a good time. I like all the other DCEU movies, some more than others. But I started to get pretty excited about Birds of Prey near its opening day, because at first I thought, why are you making this movie? And then the last week or two before it opened, with the trailers were getting better, and I'm like, okay, all right, because I love Margot Robbie. I like the Harley Quinn character. The Harley Quinn TV animated show has got me excited about the character, so I'm like, all right, let's get excited about this. And for me, even though the movie had its upside, it was a little bit disappointing, but not nearly as disappointing as the box office results. This movie lost them a ton of money, which makes it a little bit surprising that Cathy Yan has come out and said she's actually already started developing the next movie they want to make. This is the report that we're getting. This is from Cathy Yan herself, who said this. I would love to see Poison Ivy, and I would certainly love to see the relationship between Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. I don't know if it'll actually happen. I think people aren't ready to let go of Harley quite yet. And Margot, I don't think is ready to let go of Harley Quinn yet either. So hopefully. Now, this is a statement she made after also saying that she's already developing this new movie, and this new movie she wants to do would revolve Harley Quinn and her relationship with Poison Ivy. For people who know the comic stuff, there have been certain stories and certain iterations that reference a romantic relationship between Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. And of course, in the new animated series, there is a best friends relationship, which is awesome in the animated series between Harley and Poison Ivy. They're basically your two main characters, and I absolutely love it. But Rob, as much as I would love to see a live action Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy on screen, whether it's in a romantic relationship or not, I would love to see that. I would love to see it. I think that would be fun. I think that's a great, weird chemistry dynamic that I think the animated show captures perfectly. I would love to see it in live action. But Rob, I cannot imagine any reality that another Harley Quinn movie actually gets greenlit. I can't see it happening. This movie lost so much money. And on top of that, we're going to get our Harley Quinn fix when James Gunn brings us another Suicide Squad movie, one that I am very highly anticipating. And maybe somewhere down the line, they can give us a Harley, or they can scratch our Harley Quinn Poison Ivy itch, no pun intended, with another Suicide Squad down the road. I cannot see them taking another stab at a solo movie. Rob, you're hearing this whole thing. What do you think about the idea in general? And do you think this will actually happen in any way?
Probably. Well, probably not, because, I consider Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn what I like to call an image character, meaning she's really cool looking and she's got funny character traits and all that, but she's basically one note. And I just don't know if there's enough of her to sustain. I mean, I don't think she sustained Birds of Prey. She's fun to watch, and she certainly plays the character to the hilt. But, you look at her and you're like, I don't think there's enough there to build a movie around. I mean, the film, I just like the Birds of Prey movie. To me, also one of the problems was the Birds of Prey weren't kick-ass enough. I mean, they
were hardly in it. They were hardly in it.
What I wanted to see was the female equivalent of The Dirty Dozen, a team building movie and I just felt the characters were the way they were portrayed was a little lackluster. And I didn't feel that I got enough there just wasn't enough substance there for me. It was all image. It just felt very surfacey. And, Cassandra Cain, and it's not that everybody didn't give it their best shot. I just thought the conception of the film, the very DNA of the movie, didn't really work. I mean, I can understand why certain people like it. I mean, what I'm noticing a lot about people is sometimes just seeing these characters portrayed is enough for some people, but movies still have to resonate on many different levels. And I don't feel that we got that. I think Harley Quinn might be best, like you said, as a secondary character. That's where maybe she belongs. And obviously Margot Robbie is a great actress. She's great in the role. But you got to have a movie that works around the character for that to carry a feature film. And I didn't see that in Birds of Prey.
You know what? You brought up a really interesting point about her kind of being one note. And I think that was part of the frustration for me, because when you look at the Harley Quinn character in Suicide Squad, for all of its faults, the Harley Quinn character in Suicide Squad was a little more than one note. They actually had some pretty interesting dimensions to her there on a different level of psychoses and all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of interesting. I'm not saying it was, Oscar worthy or anything, but it was pretty interesting. I felt like when they went into Birds of Prey and the fabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn, I feel like they then narrowed the character down to one note. I felt like this was a more fleshed out character in the Suicide Squad. And if you're going to bring her into her own movie, you should be expanding on that. Instead, she was very simple and very one note, and not at all the character that a lot of us really enjoyed in that first movie. So,
right.
So I don't know. It seems like they're moving backwards. Question here is, guys, what do you think about that? Number one, would you be interested in another Harley Quinn standalone film if it featured the relationship of Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy? But really, the bigger question is, do you think, understanding the financial losses the movie took, do you think they would ever actually move forward with it at this point? What do you guys think? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our second main topic today. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Geeky Gator, who writes, "Hey, John and crew. During the big release date changes and announcements Disney made over the weekend, it was revealed Captain Marvel 2 will open on July 8th, 2022, which is just 1 week after the date Warner Brothers dated The Flash on July 1st, 2022. If The Flash actually gets made, and that is a huge question mark, which film do you think would do better? Which film is more likely to move?" All right, thanks a lot for saying that in, Geeky Gator. And yes, this now has to be discussed in the light of, a little bit, unfortunately, the story we referred to a little bit earlier, of course, with the Ezra Miller video going around. Again, a lot of people, including myself, think it could be real, but highly doubt that it's real. So that aside, listen, I have had my doubts that this movie was going to happen at all. The only reason I still think it's legitimately possible, that Ezra Miller video nonsense stuff aside, okay, we're taking that, putting it on the shelf for a second. So just let's talk about this by its own merits. I've always really felt that there was a strong chance this movie never happens anyway. The only reason I believe it's possible that it can still happen is because Warner Brothers purposefully wanted Ezra Miller to pop up in the CW Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover with Gustin, right? With Grant Gustin. They wanted him in there, as I think, as a reminder to everybody, hey, everybody, don't forget this Ezra Miller Flash is still around and we're going to do a movie. So that made me go from like, I think there's a 25% chance that this Ezra Miller Flash movie actually happens to about 45% chance, right? And again, that's not even taking into consideration the stuff with this video. I don't think the video is real, but it might be, and if it is, then that kind of screws everything up altogether. But let's talk about this for a second, just in its own unique terms here. Let's say for a moment that these two movies do move forward and they do come out. July 1st, 2022 for Flash, July 8th, 2022 for Captain Marvel. Which one wins the box office? Which one, if either, decide to move? The answer to question one to me is obvious. The Captain Marvel movie will kick the crap out of the Flash movie. I mean, look, anything can happen in this world. Absolutely anything. I never thought Aquaman would make $800 million, and it made $1 billion, right? So there you go. I mean, anything can happen. But aside from the anything can happen argument, I just don't see any rational way one would think that a Captain Marvel movie, which made $1 billion at the box office in its first run, would get outperformed by a Flash movie that never had a first run and whose lead character is not nearly as embraced and beloved as Jason Momoa is playing Aquaman. And I just don't see how anybody can point to any rational data that would lead me to think that a Flash movie would outperform Captain Marvel 2. Now, this is all, of course, Rob, not taking into account that, hey, once we get closer to those dates, we'll see the trailers and then we'll start to get a feel. And who knows, maybe the Flash's trailers look like the best movie ever. The Captain Marvel 2 trailers, maybe they look like crap, and maybe that changes the narrative. But being on this side of it, I just don't see any way. And listen, as far as the question, Rob, about which one would move if either of them, well, history tells us DC will move Flash. That's what history tells us. We were in a similar situation to this when, what was it? It was going to be Captain America Civil War was going to be opening roughly the same time. Was it as Justice League? Or no, it was going to be of Batman versus Superman, I think. And they were in the exact same situation, and DC decided to move their movie, which, by the way, I don't think was a chicken thing. I think that was a smart thing. I think that was an intelligent thing to do. And they were the smart ones. They moved. So I think if history tells us anything, yeah, DC will be the one to move it. So assuming, Rob, that everything moves forward as planned, that's a big question mark. And assuming that I've always been wrong about my doubts that Flash would even never get made anyway, and we do come to this point in 2022 where we've got the Flash opening up on 1 week and Captain Marvel 2 opening up the next week, I put the question to you, our existential Mr. Rogers. Which one wins the box office? And maybe even more importantly, do one of them move instead? And if so, which one takes the dive? How do you see it?
Dude, there is no way on God's green earth that a Flash movie would ever rival a Captain Marvel movie at the box office, with one exception. The Captain Marvel movie would really have to suck. I mean, remember, that film made over $1 billion. Captain Marvel's now been appearing in other Marvel movies, including Endgame, and she's probably going to appear, I mean, I don't know if she's in the Eternals or not, but the character obviously struck a chord with a lot of female viewers. You've got the female audience, and, you know, Flash, I just don't see. Flash is a smaller character. Flash has also been seen on TV on the CW for how many seasons now? And by the time the Flash movie comes out, there might be 10 seasons of Flash on TV. It's not like people have been missing the character. And I just don't see. I think Flash would absolutely move. And I think it's no contest. And this is from somebody who loved Ezra Miller as the Flash. I have Ezra Miller's hot toy right here. And I really have. I loved him in Perks of Being a Wallflower. I recently showed Elizabeth, although she wonders why. We have to talk about Kevin, or we need to talk about Kevin.
We need to talk about Kevin.
He's great in that. And I just don't see a Flash movie posing any threat, even if they open on the same day. Captain Marvel wins, and twice on Sunday. So.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. And I'm like you. I say that as somebody who I enjoy Ezra Miller as the Flash.
Me too.
I liked him as the Flash. I thought he was really good as the Flash. I may have my other opinions about outside of that, but That's how it is. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. Guys, the question for you then is, what do you think about this? If you had to guess right now, if all of the things being equal, everything moved forward and all that kind of stuff, and we end up getting Flash and Captain Marvel going head-to-head just 1 week apart, which one do you think ends up winning that box office? And do you think one of them actually moves? And if so, do you think it'll be the Flash that moves off that date? Do you think it'll be Captain Marvel 2 that moves off that date? How do you see it? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to main topic number 3. Sticking in the realm of the MCU a little bit, we go to this next question, which is submitted to us by Maresh, who writes, "Greetings and salutations. Just wondering if you saw that Ant-Man 3 just took a big step forward by bringing on a new writer, Jeff Loveness, who is the main writer and co-producer on Rick and Morty. Also, are you surprised they're doing another Ant-Man movie? And do you think this writer is a good fit for the franchise? Thank you." All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And listen, the first thing I should point out here, and this is important, is that I do not believe Loveness is actually the main writer nor the main producer of Rick and Morty, but he is clearly integral to that show, and that's a key thing. Now, where this is all coming from, this comes from The Hollywood Reporter that wrote the following, that Loveness has been brought on to write the script for Ant-Man 3, and it says the following: "Loveness is known for his comedy work, having gotten his start writing on Jimmy Kimmel Live. On top of several seasons worth of late night shows, he also worked on the Oscars, the Emmys, and the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He wrote on TBS's Daniel Radcliffe starring series Miracle Workers, which I keep hearing is really good, but I've never seen myself. Loveness is also has some Marvel experience, having written comics centering on such characters as Spider-Man, Groot, and Nova, among others, for the publishing powerhouse." So, Rob, we get into a situation where we get a writer who, by the way, the first thing I should probably point out is I don't watch Rick and Morty. I watched season 1, and I thought it was okay, but I never felt the need to keep going with it. I know a lot of people, including some very good friends of mine, look at me as like, how do you not love Rick and Morty? I know, I get, it's just, I didn't love it. I thought it was okay. Nothing wrong with it. So I'm not really an expert to say about whether a guy who writes on Rick and Morty is the perfect fit for this. I will say, though, that that's a pretty good resume. And when you understand the nature of the Ant-Man movies up until this point, it seems to me, Rob, like a guy like this could theoretically be an absolutely wonderful fit for this. Now, look, I should also say the following. I really enjoy, more than most people, the 2 Ant-Man movies. I think Ant-Man 1 is better than Ant-Man 2, but I still quite enjoyed Ant-Man 2. But I never really thought, and I still have some doubts, that they would do an Ant-Man 3. You know, I've said for a long time, I feel like Ant-Man's part in the MCU has been played. Once you get into Endgame and him playing his part in Endgame, I feel like the Ant-Man purpose for his narrative in this overall story is now done. It's now played. And the reality is that even while they've been successful, the Ant-Man movies have been, let's just call it, on the lower end of the box office scale for Marvel. So when you combine the fact that he's kind of played his part, they're not the biggest money-making movies, although they make money, but, you know, other movies might make more. I felt really comfortable before saying, I think they're done. I don't think we're going to get an Ant-Man 3. Although I would love it, I don't think they are. So getting this news to me, Rob, is a bit of a pleasant surprise. I like hearing this news, and at least on its surface, this guy does sound like a really good fit. It should be noted that there's been no official word about Ant-Man 3, but clearly they're at least exploring it and trying to see if they can get a third one together. And if it is, it would, of course, be directed by Peyton Reed again, who I think has done a very good job on this franchise. Rob, you're hearing this. Number one, are you surprised to hear them moving forward with an Ant-Man 3, or does it make common sense to you? And number two, what do you think about the addition of Loveness as a writer on the franchise?
Well, first of all, I really like the Ant-Man movies. And like you, I mean, they're not, I've obviously recognized they're not the biggest grossing of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but you know, I think they're overall the most family friendly. Like, you can take little kids all the way up to grandma and grandpa to see the Ant-Man films. And what I do like about them is that Scott Lang Yes, he's been in prison, and yes, he's been a thief, but he's like the most everyman character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's not a soldier, he's not a god, he's just a dude. and who well, pulled small time. He was a small time hood that came across this power and got involved. And I really like his quality. And it's funny, watching Endgame the other day again. I was playing around with this system, my audio system, and I was struck by the way they use him. As this guy he's really over his head whenever he's involved with the Avengers, yet he's there, but I like the fact that he's excited. He still can't get over the fact he's standing in front of Captain America or the Hulk gave him tacos, and it's just, he's like what we as the audience would be. So he's our proxy character into the whole world. And I really like that. And I like Evangeline Lilly, and I like the,
Michael Pena.
Michael Pena, and I really like the relationship of those characters. It's just a different kind of a film, and I think, I too am not a huge fan of Rick and Morty. Not that it isn't great; it's just not my thing. Everybody thinks like you must love Rick and Morty. I'm like, well, yeah, I watch it and I understand what it is. It's really good, but I think he's a great choice to write this script, and it'll be interesting. I'm always wary, Kathy Tan, before she directed Birds of Prey, made one Sundance movie, and the other thing she'd made was short films. And I'm always a little wary when they bring brand new talent into franchises like this that don't have, say, feature credits. I understand what they're trying to do and diversify and all that, but I'm always a little wary because making feature films, there's an ebb and a flow to feature film storytelling that's difficult to master. And I understand when they're trying to get new talent, it makes sense to me, but I'm always a little hesitant when someone's got either one movie under their belts or no movies under their belt, and they come in to these franchise properties to try and add to them. I hope it goes well. I mean, Marvel seems to know what they're doing.
And you know what? Here's something for us to keep in mind too. Now, this is pure speculation on my part, but walk with me here. Walk with Elias. All right. Rob, you and I have both said on previous shows that, once they get a Fantastic Four thing together, who'd be a really good director for Fantastic Four? Peyton Reed.
Yeah.
The guy who's direct. You and I have both said that before. What if we have a situation here where Marvel and Kevin Feige believe that as well, and they're thinking, it'd be a great way to introduce the Fantastic Four? In Ant-Man 3. More quantum realm stuff. Rob, I know you've speculated before about how great would a story be where the Fantastic Four have actually been trapped for decades inside the quantum realm and come out.
Yeah.
So there would give us a Peyton Reed directed with Fantastic Four. It gives us a tie-in. You use Ant-Man 3 to do that. I mean, again, pure speculation. I have no insider information on this. But Rob, what would you think about something like that as a pole vault to get Fantastic Four in here and attach it to Peyton Reed?
We've talked about that, and if it's John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, I could absolutely see something like that happening, and it would be really interesting to bring the Fantastic Four in as if they were characters from the '60s, because then they would be anachronistic, which I love, and in a way, you could even tie them, like they could go to the old Steve Rogers. Because he's the only person that can kind of relate to what happened to them. Like, I understand you're displaced in time. I know what that's like. And you bring back Steve Rogers as an old man to sort of be the guy that the Fantastic Four talk to. Like, how do you acclimate when you've gone 60 or 70 years into the future? And I love that idea. I mean, I think Peyton Reed is the perfect guy to do it. And, the quantum realm is the way, I think, to do something like that. And it's interesting because everybody already knows the Fantastic Four. And to go back and tell another origin story of the Fantastic Four yet again, I mean, you show it in flashbacks or something, but that's totally, John, it's speculation. But I like it. I mean, I think it's a really good idea. And why not? But, and maybe that's their thought. The fact that they've greenlit this movie, there's a reason why they're making another Ant-Man movie. They have a plan. They already know why they're going to use it, how they're going to use it. And the quantum realm was such a huge part of Endgame that I think that we're not done seeing what some of the results of that could possibly be.
All right, guys, the question is, what do you think about all this? Were you surprised to hear that they're doing an Ant-Man 3? And what do you think about the addition of a writer from Rick and Morty being involved there to write the script for the new one? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with that down, let's move into our fourth and final main topic today. And our fourth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Gab, who writes, it was announced that Artemis Fowl, an upcoming Disney movie, will be going directly to streaming on Disney Plus instead of going to theaters this May 29th. Personally, I think it's a good move considering it was, in my opinion, going to make them lose money anyway, considering there's no hype and that the trailers were, in my opinion, bad. Thank you, and bring on the filthy. All right, thanks a lot for saying that in, Gab. And yep, in the midst of this unprecedented situation that we're in with the lockdown and all this kind of stuff, Disney has made the announcement official. They have decided to pull Artemis Fowl from the release schedule, and they're going to release it directly on Disney Plus. A surprise. Not the hugest surprise. Rob, you'll remember a number of weeks ago we were talking about the possibility of Disney moving some of their movies off of the theatrical schedule, either onto VOD or onto Disney Plus, to which I said, oh no, that's not going to happen. And I said, well, I mean, if it's going to happen to any of them, I suppose it would be Artemis Fowl, but I don't think Artemis Fowl will do that. I mean, to be clear, I don't think Artemis Fowl, but if it's going to be any of them, and I guess it would probably be Artemis Fowl. It's not tracking well. It's actually tracking zero. Everybody seemed to hate the trailers. This was a movie that was going to lose them a lot of money. And I suppose in retrospect that the fact of the matter is too, Disney makes a lot of movies, and right now everything's getting pushed and pushed and pushed, which is going to create a backlog catalog of movies that need to get released. And I suppose it made sense, I guess, although I am still surprised, it made sense that you might as well take one and take it out of that rotation to give it a little bit more breathing room, to give the schedule a little bit more breathing room, and drop this on Disney Plus. In hindsight, it makes sense. This movie, to a lot of people, looked terrible. I think I am the only person in the known universe that actually thought the trailer was kind of good. I remember I got onto it and I said, you know what? I don't know Artemis Fowl. I never read Artemis Fowl, but I looked at this trailer. I thought it was pretty good. Holy crap. I mean, I had people literally offended at me that I said I liked the trailer. It's like, how dare, I literally had tweets sent to me using the words, how dare you, when I said I actually liked the trailer. But hey, whatever. So clearly, most people hated the trailers. Nobody was buzzing about this. This was a movie that was going to lose Disney an unspeakable amount of money regardless. So I suppose it makes sense if you're going to move any, that's the one to move. Although, for the record, I'm still surprised. I still thought they would have kept it on there. So they're moving that, and I suppose it makes sense. What a lot of people, Rob, then have understandably then wrote to me and asked is, well, wait a minute. You know, the Theater Association got real upset at, say, Universal when they pulled what is also destined to be a money loser, Trolls, and went straight to VOD. Are they going to be equally as upset with Disney on this? And I would say no. And the reason I would say no, Rob, is because of something that you said and something I said as well before, which is, you know, if Universal, one of the things that the theaters were clearly upset at Universal was that while every other studio was in open, long communication with the theaters and going through their steps and which movies they were going to bump and how and why and all that kind of stuff, the theaters were really pissed off that Universal, their supposed partners, literally gave them no notice and just dropped the news that they were doing it, and they felt very cut out of the loop. I guarantee you that Disney has been in communication probably for weeks with the theaters about this. And if I'm Disney, Rob, what I think Disney's pitch to the theaters was that, look, we're obviously, once the theaters open back up, we're going to be facing a backlog. And we're going to have a lot of films that we need to get into theaters. And our thinking is, why bother forcing out there a movie that we know isn't going to make us any money and is probably not going to make you guys, the theaters, any money? Why don't we pull that one out so your screens can be populated with movies that will probably make more money than this one and therefore make you more money with this one? Regardless of what their pitch to the theaters was, I guarantee you Disney was in deep, long communication with the theaters about this move, which makes it completely different from the situation with Universal. That's what I think, at any rate. Rob, you see that they pulled Artemis Fowl off the release schedule. Number one, were you surprised like I was that they did it? And number two, if they're going to pull any movie, was this the right movie to pull, or should they have maybe pulled another one? How do you see it?
Well, first of all, I was excited about Artemis Fowl for no other reason than Kenneth Branagh directed it.
Yep.
I mean, Kenneth Branagh, who directed Thor and Cinderella, has always done right by Disney. I mean, Kenneth Branagh he's been directing for decades now, all the way back to Henry V. I'm a big fan of Branagh's work, and I think that I was very surprised. But on the other hand, this film, obviously, you could tell there was no real excitement in the fan community. People weren't buzzing like this about this movie. They know what the tracking numbers are, and I think it's a $125 million budgeted film or something like that. And I think they're looking at this as, look, we're not going to have any movies, and we don't have the Marvel shows have been pushed. We need a big movie that we can advertise, hopefully, on our streaming service that'll bring people. Everybody wants more subscribers. And I think of all of the things in their pipeline, it's not like Disney has 30 movies. You know, they're obviously not going to put one of their major Pixar releases, even though they did with Onward after it was in the theaters. But I think this was the right move for them. This is a way that they're saying, look, we were going to put this in theaters, but again, this tsunami of craziness has hit us. And I think they made a pivot with this movie. That was a good thing to do. They're looking at the numbers, the theatrical numbers, and this could, being on Disney Plus, be maybe a big hit for them. Maybe it will drive subscriptions. I mean, you never know. But I think of everything that they had, this was probably the only movie that they could have done this with. And I don't think it was a bad decision.
No, it probably does make sense. But, I mean, at the same time, are there really a lot of people out there who was like, Disney Plus hasn't been for me, but you put Artemis Fowl on there, I'm signing up for Disney Plus. I mean, really, is that really going to represent mathematically a significant? I don't know. But who knows? I mean, who knows? The crazier things have happened. It's going to be interesting. I think this was a situation, Rob, where Disney realized, look, Artemis Fowl is a loss for us. We already know that before it's opened. So we keep it in theaters, we lose. We put it directly to Disney Plus, we lose. But hey, maybe there's some upside if we move it to Disney Plus as a release and we paint it, we spin it in such a way of, look, everybody, we're putting it directly to Disney Plus. Look how great Disney Plus is. At least maybe there's a positive way to spin it. Hey, look, I don't know what the other alternatives were, so I agree with you, dude. I think you've nailed that on the head. Question is, guys, what do you think about that move to put Artemis Fowl? It surprises me. Maybe it doesn't surprise you, but I thought probably makes sense. Maybe you don't think it makes sense. What do you think about this whole thing? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With all that stuff down away, this is normally the part of the show now while we're all in lockdown that Rob and I give our movie recommendations, but we're already running quite long, so our movie recommendations will return again tomorrow. Come back and join us for that. But for now, Rob and I are going to take a quick, short 4-minute break. If you guys will be patient and indulge us as we rest the vocal cords, stretch our legs, lets me go refill my drink, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom. So if you will hang tight with us, guys, don't go anywhere. Robert and I will be right back with your live questions. See you in just a couple of minutes. are back a little bit early and ahead of schedule. I was real fast going down getting my new drink. Zevia, the healthy cola choice. What the hell? Why don't these guys sponsor me? I talk about their damn stuff all the time. All right, guys, with all that down, let's jump into your live questions. Okay, and we're going to start things off here with Gabe Escure, who writes, when will they live action Disney's Treasure Planet? Honestly, I don't think they ever will. I mean, it's impossible to say ever. It's impossible to say ever because they're always looking for IPs. I just don't see that one that would translate all that great. I don't know, Rob, what do you think? You think they're going to do one?
No. It's not like it rolls off the tongue along with Snow White, Cinderella, and even the Fox and the Hound.
Yeah, we're not saying there isn't some creative merit to it. We're just saying I don't think it'll happen. But hey, never know. Keep hope alive, Gabe. Nicholas Sergi writes, meant that Cloud Atlas swung for the fences ambitious. All right, because Nicholas, I remember you wrote in about that over the weekend. And yeah, no, you're right. Cloud Atlas was ambitious. Unfortunately, it's like one of those divisive films. Some people loved it. Some people really hated it. Santez Henderson writes, as much as I didn't want Kylo 2 to be redeemed, the scene with him and Han's memory replaying the scene where he was killed was quite touching. That said, the draft for Duel of the Fates was great. Yeah, listen, I didn't like, I don't like Rise of Skywalker. It is what it is. That was a scene that was a little bit touching. Yeah, I'll give it that. It's always good to see Harrison Ford on screen. I read the Duel of the Fates script. I thought it was a better story than the one they did in Rise of Skywalker. I still don't know that I thought it was great, but it was good. And I thought it was better. Rob, you were obviously one of the very first people to read that script. Like, how would you rate it?
I really liked it. I thought it was really, really good. It showed a little bit more coordination and between all the powers that be and the filmmakers, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, what can I say? Was it perfect? No, but scripts are very iterative. They change as the film goes into production, and I thought it was really, really strong.
All right. Artur writes, hey, John, do you think after the crisis is over that AMC will continue to offer A-list? Oh, absolutely. My theater is the AMC Burbank 16. That is mine as well, actually. And I don't think I can go back to paying $20 to $23 for one movie. Oh, but we would. I mean, we would, because that's the way it was, and we would just go back to our regular routines. But no, they have invested way too much in AMC A-list. It was finally starting to make them a profit. It's proved that it works. They will absolutely go back to AMC A-list. I 100% guarantee it. All right, QS Hicks writes, with the potential for another round of social distancing in the fall, do you think the Oscars will skip next year and return in 2022 with 2 years of movies? No, I don't believe that. I think the Oscars will go on no matter what, even if it's a remote hosted thing, much like the upcoming NFL draft will probably be. I think it'll be done and the winners will be announced. I don't see them canceling it all. Rob, it would be unprecedented. You could understand why they might, but I don't think they will. What do you think? Do you think they'd cancel the Oscars?
It depends. I mean, I think that it really depends on whether they get the theaters open, John, and if people flock back to the movie theaters, because if it's slow, if movie going is slow to return, they might. But again, I think it's a big if. I think, look, they don't want to. Obviously, it's a big deal. The Academy is opening their gigantic, beautiful new museum this year. Well, if that opens. And I think it really is going to depend on where we're at in terms of movie theaters and whether or not the studios are going to release movies. But remember, the Oscar season is predominantly back. It's what do you call it? Not front loaded, but back loaded.
Yeah.
Between September and December. And that's a long time. I mean, September, October, November, December. You can release a lot of great movies in that particular period of time. So maybe, I hope, John, I hope so.
Yeah, I think they will. Even, again, if they just do a YouTube live stream and just announce winners, I really do think they will. All right, Emmanuel Ericart writes, guilty pleasure movies that I can't absolutely explain why I love them this much. You don't mess with the Zohan. Oh, God, I hate that movie. And Your Highness, a movie that has its moments. And there's a movie that I have on my top 10 that people look at me and ask why. The 13th Warrior is my epic movie to go to over Lord of the Rings. Listen, that's Antonio Banderas, 13th Warrior. That is one that a lot of my friends like, and I never understood the appeal of it. But hey, Emmanuel, you get it. That's the definition of a guilty pleasure movie. So you're nailing it. All right. Russell Amador writes, "Hey, John, I'm pushing 26 years late to the party, but finally saw Shawshank Redemption. No excuse why it's taken me this long, but absolutely loved it. Just a masterpiece of acting and storytelling. Again, to me, it is a perfect movie. It is a top 3 greatest movie of all time. You can make an argument to me that maybe it's the greatest movie of all time. Godfather, others, Star Wars, blah, blah, blah. But if you have not seen, guys, please, I will get on my hands and knees and beg you to follow Russell Amador's example here. If you have not seen Shawshank Redemption yet, take this opportunity and watch it. You will be glad that you did, and you'll see what great filmmaking really is. All right, Mr. XVS writes, "Hey, John, what is the potential for there to be another GOAT on Spielberg's level in the film industry? What would a new age GOAT look like to you? And what does that modern innovation look like?" Rob, to me, I've always said that one of the main reasons that Spielberg, to me, is the greatest of all time, besides the sheer volume of amazing all-time great movies and iconic movies that he has in his filmography, is the fact that he can do every kind of movie. He can do sci-fi. He can do period piece. He can do action. He can do adventure. He can do hardcore drama. He can do it all and had them nominated. He can do war movies. He can do what and make them Academy Award nominated Best Picture movies. Hell, he even did Ready Player One, which I had very little interest in, and I loved Ready Player One. I thought it was great. I think what it's going to take is a director like, say, a Quentin Tarantino, a director like a Christopher Nolan, a director like some of those directors, to truly branch out and start showing that they can tell really different kinds of stories. Tell us stories that are out, because Quentin Tarantino, who is great, and you know I love him, he makes Quentin Tarantino movies. Christopher Nolan is awesome, but he makes Christopher Nolan movies. I would need to see a director come along that can show the world that you toss any genre in their lap and they can make it a Best Picture nominated movie. I mean, that to me is what I would need to see. Rob, what would you need to see for someone to be the new GOAT?
I don't even know if it's possible, to be honest, because the world is different. The way movies work, the way we watch movies, the way movies are considered in culture now is just different. When Spielberg first started out, Steven Spielberg is, I would say, a savant in terms of the way he knows how to move camera. Nobody moves a camera the way he moves a camera. And if you look at his early career, Jaws, Close Encounters, I mean, I like 1941, but I won't include that one at the time, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and E.T., those 4 movies alone are some of the greatest populist cinema of all time. And the way that he is able to engage audiences and set up, I don't know if there's ever going to be anybody will ever see a filmmaker like that, because I don't know if there's a world that exists that can make somebody grow up and become a filmmaker like him. I mean, remember, he started directing when he was 21 at Universal. And I just don't know if it's possible, because the problem is when he started making movies, no one was making movies the way he was making movies. And since then, everyone has grown up in his shadow. And I don't know if it's even possible for a filmmaker to come along to be as innovative as Spielberg was at the time in the 70s when he came on the scene with Jaws in 1975. And I just don't know if that could ever happen again.
It's a good point. All right. Next up, thanks for the question, man. Curtis Lopez writes, if Universal is one of the main studios to help AMC get back to financially stable, will they be slightly forgiven with what happened with Trolls 2? There's an AMC at Universal City Walk. That's true. There is a really great AMC theater at Universal City Walk. And yeah, listen, tragic times can bring out the worst and bring out the best. And yeah, you accidentally trip me as we're running from the zombies, I'm going to be pissed. If, however, you reach out your hand and pull me back onto the train as the zombies are chasing me, a little bit of a Train to Busan reference there, then that'll forgive a lot. So I think it'll make everybody kind of close ranks a little bit and let bygones be bygones. It's a really good point, Curtis. It's a really good point. Alan Peaks writes, John, you will regret not watching Ozark. It's funny. I never regret not watching anything. Season 3 acting will garner Emmy nominations. Of that, I have no doubt. This is the best acting in a TV season since Sopranos. That's great. But if you have the greatest acting in the world, but you don't have a story that engages me, that doesn't really help too awful much. But again, I tapped out on Ozark about 4 or 5 episodes into season 1. Wasn't really working for me, so I watched other things. I'm hearing enough people talk about, though I am considering maybe revisiting that at some point, because a lot of you guys seem to be really loving it. I might have to revisit that. All right.
You should.
Thanks for that, Alan. I appreciate that. Willow writes, since you recommended Eddie the Eagle the other day, I'd like to recommend Cool Runnings, another feel-good sports movie that's also set in the 1988 Winter Olympics about the Jamaican bobsled team with John Candy, if I'm not mistaken. I loved Cool Runnings. I love that movie. And I don't know why, Rob. The part that I always love the most, that I always remember, is when he starts trying to count down in German. Remember that? He's trying to mimic the German. Oisi, was? I don't know how to count in German. But I like that. Your memories and thoughts of Cool Runnings. I love that movie.
Dude, how can you not love a movie about the Jamaican bobsled team? The whole idea, it has a built-in, you hear, like I just said the words and you laughed, it has a built-in underdog quality, and I can't think of a movie whose premise just immediately puts a smile on one's face the way that would do it. And I thought, like you said, I thought the movie was delightful.
Yeah, I really did. I thought it was great. Diamond Dog's Puppy writes, what are your thoughts on the 2002 Matthew McConaughey, Christian Bale film Reign of Fire? I always imagined a sequel being potentially badass with that unique concept, but it might have been stretched thin as a film franchise. Take it easy every day. I'm going to be honest with you, never a huge fan of that movie. Not really a huge fan of Reign of Fire. I know some people really are, and that is great, but yeah, I just never thought it was really all that strong, to be honest. Although, Rob, it was the first movie that we got a glimpse of, whoa, Matthew McConaughey's huge. I mean, that was the first time, like when he pops out of that tank and it was like, holy crap, this dude's huge. But I never thought it was all that good. I don't think it's the garbage movie some people make it out to be. I just never thought it was all that good. What were your thoughts on Reign of Fire?
You know what? I really like Reign of Fire, but it's not great. It's one of those movies that I think it has a really cool premise. And I mean, who would have known that the worldwide apocalypse would have been brought about by dragons appearing? I just don't think the movie's frustrating because the premise is so cool, but the execution is not as cool as it should have been. And I blame the script. I think Rob Bowman came out from directing Next Generation and X-Files episodes and directed that. And I wanted it to be better, but I think the script, the premise, the rest of the movie is not as clever as the premise.
All right, next up. Mr. T.J. Lynn writes, do you think it's a mistake for the Lord of the Rings The Two Towers campaign to show Gandalf alive in the trailer? For me, who are not familiar, probably meant for those who are not familiar with the story, it kind of spoiled a bit. No. Here's the thing. Lord of the Rings is not some obscure little novel that got turned into a movie. It's one of the most beloved series of novels of all time. And it's not just that, well, not everybody knew it, true, but everybody was surrounded by people who knew it. So to me, there would have been no point. There really would have been no point in trying to hide the fact that Gandalf comes back in the second one, when basically 85% of the audience, movie-going audience, was going to know about it anyway, either because they read the books or somebody who they know knows the books and tells them, don't worry, Gandalf comes back. So there really would have been no point. There would have been no point trying to keep it a secret. So no, actually, I don't think it was a mistake. Again, don't confuse this with some smaller, lesser-known novel that like not the majority of people are familiar with. This is a little bit different, so I didn't think it was a mistake, to be honest with you, TJ, but I see why you'd ask. All right, TJ also writes, thoughts on a 2001 horror film, The Others, with Nicole Kidman. If The Sixth Sense hadn't come out 2 years earlier prior, the ending would have felt more mind-blowing to me. I liked The Others.
Me too.
But I also didn't walk away from it. It's unfair to compare it with other movies, Rob, I get it, but I didn't walk away with that same exhilaration that I did, say, from Sixth Sense. And it felt like a little bit of capitalizing on that, even if it wasn't. So I like the film, but not one that I go back and revisit quite often. But what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I love the director, Alejandro Amenabar. I mean, he directed the original Vanilla Sky, Abrió los Ojos, and he also directed a really pretty great Spanish thriller called Thesis. So when I saw Others for the first time, I was already a fan of his, and I really liked it. And, you know, Ghost Stories, it's not exactly like, while Sixth Sense had the whammy ending, if you're a fan of Ghost Stories, I don't think the Others was necessarily the whammy ending. You know, you kind of saw it coming, but I thought it was so beautifully done. And again,
Nicole Kidman was great in it. So
great. I mean, Nicole Kidman, even when she's in movies, like I recently caught up with Destroyer, Karen Kusama's movie.
Oh yeah, she was great in that.
Oh my God, is she incredible in that movie? And the fact that she was
like you've never seen her before.
Oh my God, amazing! I love her. I've loved her since Dead Calm, John.
Oh, she's great. I love Nicole Kidman. All right. Timbula the Spider Monkey writes, 1 of 2. Top 20. Oh, here we go. Top 20. Number 20, Dawn of the Dead, 1978. Number 19, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back. Number 18, The Killing. 17, Bride of Frankenstein. Number 16, All Quiet on the Western Front. Number 15, The Day the Earth Stood Still. Number 14, Duck Soup. Number 13, Jason and the Argonauts, which we just talked about the other day. Number 12, Rebel Without a Cause. Number 11, Miller's Crossing. Number 10, Alien. Number 9, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. Number 8, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Number 7, Nosferatu. Number 6, Citizen Kane. Number 5, Doctor Strangelove and How I Learned to Stop Worrying and to Love the Bomb. Number 4, Akira. Number 3, King Kong. Number 2, Lawrence of Arabia. And number 1, Seven Samurai. How many make your top 20 list? Well, Empire Strikes Back. First of all, I like every movie on your list. In my top 20, Empire Strikes Back is in my top 20. It's in my top 10. But Lord of the Rings is in my top 20. Lawrence of Arabia is in my top 10. I think that ends it for those that are in my top 20. But I like all these. Rob, when you're looking down this list, how many of these stand out to you as being in your top 20?
Oh, a lot of them. But let me tell you what needs to be much higher in Tim's list there. Dawn of the Dead.
I knew you were going to say that.
George Romero's Dawn of the Dead is one of my favorite top 10 of all time movies. And boy, can I not wait for that Second Sight special edition that's coming out this year. Woohoo!
All right, next one up. Timbula the Spider Monkey writes, the way you feel about the use of the term guilty pleasure is the way I feel about people saying a movie is underrated. I had an argument with someone who once claimed that Whiplash was underrated. Dude, it was nominated for Best Picture. No, I agree. I think people misuse the terms guilty pleasure and misuse the term underrated. Underrated means you think there's a lot of people who didn't like it. That's why I think Man of Steel is a completely underrated film. There's a lot of people who didn't like that. There's a lot of people who didn't like the first Thor movie, which I think makes it the second most underrated comic book movie of all time. But I think you're absolutely right, Timbula. I think we're starting to see people on this channel use guilty pleasure more, because it would drive me crazy when people, Rob, would say, oh, my guilty pleasure is, I don't know, Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman. It's like the movie is an Academy Award nominated movie. Everybody loves Tootsie. What do you mean it's a guilty pleasure? Guilty pleasure is when it's a movie that you acknowledge that you really appreciate, even though there's a hell of a lot of other people that don't like it. And I think you're right, Timbula. I think underrated is also one that's misused. All right, Timbula also writes, last one, my movie recommendation for today is The Lives of Others. This is a nice one, actually. A German movie about the secret police officer in the East Germany in 1984 who is tasked with spying on an artist and his girlfriend, but through his work, he becomes obsessed with their lives. Rob, did you have a chance to see this one?
I own it.
I knew it. I knew it.
It's great. It's great. I love it. I love it.
I don't know why I don't even know why I asked the question anymore. All right, the Sock writes, one good to come out of this is my store is doing really well. I've just recently been promoted to overnight freight supervisor at Home Depot, and due to the COVID-19, they've been giving us double time for overtime and $100 bonuses. And listen, for people who are in jobs that make it possible for us to quarantine at home, because the machine will keep working. People in grocery stores, especially people in healthcare, but people also in like warehouses, things like that. The people who are making it possible for us to quarantine at home. I'm so grateful. And it's unfortunate, Rob, we've said this a few times. It's so unfortunate we have to have a situation like this. to make us realize just how vital and important and how much we should appreciate those people who do those jobs that make us doing what we do even possible. And and I'm glad to hear, Sock, that in the midst of all the crappiness, that there's lemonade being made for some people, and that you keep the lights on, you keep everything shipping. So, hey, hats off to you, man. And I'm glad that that's working out. All right, Christian34 writes, "Hey, John, greetings from Denmark." Well, greetings, Christian. Big fan since the movie blog days. Wow, that is going back. I get what my heart gets warm, Rob, when people mention the movie blog days. Wanted to know if you have ever seen any Danish movies, and if you like them. Best regards and stay safe. I'm going to be honest with you, Christian, off the top of my head. The answer is probably yes, but I probably didn't know if it was a Danish movie or not. That's the thing. I'm not well versed enough in international cinema that even though I watch a bunch of it, I couldn't tell you, oh, was this one from Chile, and was this one from Peru, and was that one from... I don't really know. Rob, do you have any off the top of your head?
Well, Lars von Trier, is Danish. And I have to tell you, I mean, one of the first movie that I ever saw that he directed is sort of a dystopian science fiction movie called The Element of Crime. And I was kind of knocked out by it. So, I mean, I've seen a lot of his movies, and like movies like The Hunt and the other Dogma 95 films, and the things that and Thomas, the Celebration, isn't this Celebrate? I mean, The Celebration, I think, was a Dogma 95 movie. That movie blew me away, to be honest. So there's a lot of great Danish movies over the last 30 years.
All right, let's keep moving here. Next one up, Glenn Tracy writes, "With the history and quality of the Alien franchise, had 1 and 2, are you personally disappointed with what Ridley Scott done with Prometheus and Alien Covenant? I understand doing something different, but come on, it could have killed the franchise and name Alien." Well, yeah, but listen, everybody thinks making movies is easy. That's the thing. Everybody thinks making movies is easy. If you made one good movie, it'll just be easy to make another good movie. It's hard. I mean, so look, I didn't like Prometheus, but there are people who did. I had an appreciation for Covenant, but it wasn't classic Alien. It wasn't as good as the classic Alien stuff like this. Listen, you go out and you make a movie, you want people to try something different, and they do, and it's good. You got to understand, if you ask people to try things that are different, you're asking them to take a risk. If you're asking people to take a risk, you have to understand that there's a chance that it's not going to work out so well. So yeah, I'm one of the people that didn't like Covenant, I didn't like Covenant as much as the original Aliens, obviously. But I just flat out didn't like Prometheus. But I know people that, Rob, I think if I remember correctly, you are one of the people who appreciated Prometheus. Did you not?
I think Prometheus is so beautifully made, but it's one of the most dunderheaded science fiction movies I've ever seen, where characters just, these really crack team of amazing scientists, probably the best on Earth, which is why they're on this mission, are so dumb in the movie, and it's so maddening. And then where they took it with Alien Covenant, I'm like, what they're doing is completely demystifying Alien, which is one of the finest science fiction horror films ever made. And the whole point behind Alien is that we should never have known where the xenomorphs came from. We should never have known where the space jockey came from. It's all about the cosmos being unknowable to a certain extent for humanity. And what they just did with Prometheus and Covenant was just demystify it all, and some crazy paranoid bent on destruction android ends up creating the xenomorphs and destroying a spacefaring race that had been around for billions of years. I mean, it was lame.
All right, next one up. But it looked good. Tariq D writes, "Hey, John and Co. I've been a fan and watcher of the show for a while now. Thank you so much, man. And my question is, which do you consider more valuable? Having the greatest film of all time, or having the greatest filmography of all time?" Man. Because you're talking about, you're talking about winning the Super Bowl or going to the Hall of Fame. Which one do you take? I'm going to go greatest filmography of all time. I think I will go greater filmography of all time. That's the way I'll lean on that. Rob, what about you?
100%, John. I would much rather have a body of work that people can examine, that you've left behind, that people go, wow, that guy made 10 amazing films, rather than just making the greatest film of all time. Because as you say, film is subjective, and that movie might not be the greatest film of all time in 20 years, but your work, if you have a body of work, people can examine what you loved, what you didn't, what you thought about humanity, where you were coming from politically. I mean, it's so interesting when you have a body of work to examine as opposed to just one thing.
All right, that's a good question, Tariq. And Tariq also then writes, you recently brought up how you're generally not a fan of ambiguous endings, i.e. Inception. I was curious if you also dislike the ending of Prisoners then. No, I do not. Hold on a second. I think it's a brilliant ending, but I was curious if you happen to have similar feelings. I don't, but how do you discuss this without giving it away? First of all, Prisoners, a Denis Villeneuve film, Jake Gyllenhaal, Hugh Jackman, brilliant film. Love it. And the dude from There Will Be Blood, Paul Dano? That's Paul. Yeah, Paul. Brilliant film. I did not interpret the ending as being all that ambiguous, to be honest with you. But that was my personal experience. And again, we can't go into. I don't want to go into details for anybody who hasn't seen it. It's a tough one to do, but it's definitely a movie you should watch. Rob, let me throw it to you. Did you find the ending kind of ambiguous, or I don't know? How did it strike you?
No. I definitely have a take on it, and I don't think it's ambiguous.
All right. Okay, I agree. All right. Next up here, Colin writes, "Why did people make a big deal about how violent Joker was? I have seen worse movies. I think it's just an excuse for critics / people to dislike the movie. It was a great movie, and I understand it wasn't for everyone. And Todd Phillips did a great job directing it. I'll tell you what, Colin, and this is going to be an unpopular thing to say, and I don't care, but I will say it. Not many people made a big deal out of it. There were more people making a big deal out of the fact that there were a couple of people making a big deal. Do you see what I'm saying here? The people who really made a big deal out of it were those who kept shining a light on and pointing to the very few people who actually were making a big deal out of it. And it got amplified, in my opinion, way beyond what it actually was. There really wasn't that many people all that upset with it. I mean, the more I looked at it, it's like, there's somebody there that, but you're going to have that with every movie, right? Because film is subjective, so it's going to happen with every movie. I'm like, yeah, there's somebody who has felt that way, and there's somebody who felt that way. And it's wow, there's really not all that many. In the grand scheme of things, there's really not all that many. But people trying to push a particular narrative decided to make a big deal out of those few people that were and blew it up. You know what it reminds me of? Here's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of, there's that little idiot group. There's this little idiot group that you've probably heard of in the news from time to time called the Hillsborough Baptist Church, right? These are the idiots that go around and protest the funerals of people who died who happen to be gay and stuff like that and blah, blah, blah. They are ultimately this tiny little group of people, this tiniest of little group of people, but they do their stupid thing, and then everybody else makes a big deal out of it. It's like they are an insignificant little group of losers. Why are we making a big deal out of it? I don't know. That's what it reminds me of, Rob, when I look at this situation. I don't know. You look at it. What do you think?
Look, I think it was the context with which it was presented, in the film, where in The Dark Knight, for instance, you don't even see blood squibs when people are getting gunned down with machine guns.
Right.
And it was the tone. Joker was all about the tone, that we're seeing a Batman villain presented in this way, and the fact that it was dealing with social issues the way it was dealing with social issues. I mean, it touched on so many things that people in the real world are dealing with, mental illness. And so when the violence came, it was presented in a very real world way. And it was shocking. It was shocking, especially to see that in a comic book related film. And that was kind of the whole point of the movie. And I think that's what it was, the tone and the way the Joker addressed these issues that made it that way. And it wasn't just that it was a comic book movie, but it was a hard hitting, socially relevant film about America today. And it was not exactly easy to swallow. And I think that was all part of its appeal. And that's why it's an important film.
All right. Next up, Tariq D also writes, top 10 MCU, my favorite franchise films. Number 10, Iron Man. Number 9, Thor Ragnarok. Number 8, Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 7, Spider-Man Homecoming. Number 6, Winter Soldier. Number 5, The Avengers. Number 4, Black Panther. Number 3, Civil War. Number 2, Infinity War. Number 1, Endgame. Thank you, John and Co. Stay safe. I mean, that's the fact that a list like that even exists
I know. That's what I was just thinking.
It just speaks to like what Kevin Feige has been able to accomplish. And the very fact that there's a lot of people looking at that list going, how dare you leave off this, is again a testimony to how great and what a job Kevin Feige has done with this thing. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Now, I personally wouldn't have Infinity War and Endgame ranked that high, but that's just me. But that's the thing, we're all going to have different takes on it. And Tariq, that's again just a great example of just how good of a job they have done, that we can even just pull that many films out of our heads and still think of about 7 or 8 that maybe should have been on the list. It's absolutely crazy. Mr. TJ Lynn writes, have you watched Ozark's? Well done, TJ. Sorry, LOL. On a more serious note, I want to thank you for bringing Rob along on the show. His enthusiasm for movies he loves and recommendations is simply unparalleled. I love having Rob on the show, and I'm always really grateful every day that I do get to have him here. And again, it's been 5 years coming up.
Dude.
Coming up on 5 years that we've been doing shows like these together, Rob, and it's crazy that it's been that long. It seems kind of just like yesterday, doesn't it?
I mean, April 14th. It's just, that is to me next week. It's unbelievable. And, I want to thank you too. Like, you reached out to me after John Schnepp passed away, and I was really, as you know, bummed out. And so were you. And so was a lot of people. I miss the guy every day. And I just went the other day and found that first show. It was April 14th, episode 6 of AMC Heroes before it became Collider Heroes. And I watched the whole show and I'm like, this was really good. I forgot how much fun we were having. And that was really that was the first time I was ever on YouTube, like live. And I'd never, appeared. I'd been on other shows as pundits before, but not like that. And it was so much fun. And you can see how much fun we were all having as well. And
I remember we would be done, and then we just go out into the foyer, where we would go into the meeting area, and we just continued our conversation. We would literally finish the show, and we would just go continue the conversation for another hour offset, which was it was good times. And Rob, that's as good as time as any, because I know you got things you got to do today, so we'll let you go at this point. But Rob, in the meantime, where can people find you and all of your ooey gooey goodness online?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at my name, Robert Meyer Burnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or come to my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations, a show about something.
All right, thanks a lot, man. Of course, we will see you back here again tomorrow. And until then, dude, I will talk to you later. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
All right, guys, we are now going to continue on with the show. We still have a lot more stuff to cover, and we are going to do that right now. So let's keep things rolling here as we go over to another one from Mr. TJ Lynn, who writes, there are many great war movies, true. Dunkirk, Hurt Locker, Saving Private Ryan, Thin Red Line, Platoon, Bridge over the River Kwai. But oddly enough, my favorite all-time war film is Enemy at the Gates, which I do like. Ray Fiennes is in that as well. So is Hellboy. Ron Perlman is in that one too, if I'm not mistaken. Enemy at the Gates with Jude Law, Joseph Fiennes, Rachel Weisz, Ed Harris, so good. It is a very good movie. And it's one that often gets overlooked quite a bit, but that is a strong, strong movie. And it tells it from a different point of view, like from a Russian point of view. And I really enjoyed it. And first of all, TJ, that's a great list of movies you just put up there, but I really like that you put in Enemy at the Gates in that one as well. All right, Star Wars Rocks writes, hi, John, did you hear the news about Logan Williams' death? The article came from the Hollywood Reporter. He played young Barry on the Flash TV series. I did read about that, and it was really sad to hear. He was 16 years old. He played in the first season of Flash. He played young Barry. I was just in a couple of episodes, and he also had a small role in Supernatural as well. So yeah, that was really sad to hear about. It's always sad. I didn't get what it was he passed away from, but whenever you hear about anybody passing away, particularly somebody as young as that, it's always really, really sad to hear. But I did hear about that. Thanks for bringing that up, Star Wars Rocks. 50 Shades of Geek writes, I know I'm a few days late on this, but I just wanted to wish Anne a happy birthday. Oh, thank you so much, 50 Shades. It was, of course, her birthday the other day, and we had a really good time doing that. And, of course, helping celebrate part of birthday week. We were playing some, this is us playing D&D. Remotely, of course, practicing social distancing. There were 6 of us playing, and of course, on the left you see us chatting over Zoom, and on the right you see our Roll20 app open, where we can actually follow along on the maps and the action that's going on as Anne, our dungeon master, was carrying it out. We had a lot of fun doing that, and hopefully you guys are able to keep a good time. So I'm sure she'll appreciate the well wishes, man. Okay. Next up, Jude Auditor writes, sends in a $50 one. Jude, thank you so much for that. And on the rare occasion that somebody sends in support of $50 or more, not only do we answer the question here on the show, but we also make it its own standalone video in a week or two. So keep your eyes open for that. In the next couple of weeks, you're going to see this also become its own standalone video. All right, Jude Auditor writes, hey, John, love your show, and I hope you and Ann are safe and healthy. We are. Thank you very much. Got a Star Wars question for you. What do you think balance in the Force means? See, here's what I think. I think the natural world is balance in the Force, right? I think status quo is, for instance, when we see Luke describing the Force to Rey in The Last Jedi, he talks about the island itself represents balance in the Force, life and death, all that kind of stuff. Everything is kind of in balance there on the island. See, people see if there is justice in the universe, that means it's not balanced towards good. No, I disagree. I believe justice in the universe is a representation of balance because there is still life and there is still death and all that kind of stuff. And when evil comes to power, that is a power shift to the dark side and the Force becomes out of balance. So I believe that a natural world running with justice is actually balance in the Force. That's how my interpretation of it is in the Star Wars universe. There are others who disagree, but that's always kind of been my interpretation of it. So, for instance, when Luke, when Luke is in the Emperor's throne room at the end of Return of the Jedi and Vader throws the Emperor over, that was restoring balance. Having good guys in power is not imbalance because good guys in power actually maintains balance. And remember, the Force is all about life, right? And I think that one explanation of the Force in The Last Jedi is probably one of the more descriptive elements of that. Anyway, it's a fabulous question, Jude, and I'll look forward to answering it again in its own standalone video. But for now, that is my thoughts on what balance in the Force means. That's why a lot of people, I think, misunderstand balance in Force, and they think that, Jedi is imbalance. You need these gray Jedi who partially use dark side and partially... I don't believe that's what balance is. I don't believe that's what the description of balance in the Force means. But anyway, that's just me as one Star Wars fan thinking about it. Again, Jude, I look forward to answering the question in its own standalone video again a little bit later. Thanks for sending that in, man. All right. Ben Rayner writes, hey, John. So I watched Sonic Quick Review. It's one of those kid road trip movies with some cool Sonic elements and classic Jim Carrey. Fun movie, but would not call it good. See, I was surprised by Sonic the Hedgehog. I thought Sonic was going to be just terrible, and it's not terrible. And Jim Carrey, I think Jim Carrey is great in it. To be just straight up, I thought Jim Carrey made that movie. I really do. I think Jim Carrey made the movie. And do I think it's great? No, I don't think it's great. But I thought it was pretty decent. Which is a big, big step up from what I thought it was going to be. Not for everybody, clearly. It is clearly more of a children's movie. Sure, but there was some good stuff in there for adults too. And again, I thought it was a pretty decent little film, which was a big surprise to me. It really was. Anyway, Colin writes, hey, John, I first got introduced to Professor Pig in the Gotham series played by Michael. That's right. I thought he was great. Do you think Professor Pig can fit on the big screen? I love how you and Rob are passionate about movies. I've been watching you since the AMC days. I don't think so. Not unless he is a side character. The type of character Professor Pig is, I don't know that he works as a focal feature film kind of villain. I just don't believe there's enough there to make that really interesting. I think he played a decent little part in Gotham, and that storyline, because it focused that whole storyline focused more on Jim. And I think when Gotham focused on Jim, that's when I thought the show worked. It worked in there, but I'm not so sure that he as a character presents a great movie villain unless he's a second or third level villain. Then he could play an interesting part. But hey, listen, if it's written the right way, any character can work on the big screen. If you write it the right way, any character can work well on the big screen. And maybe some writer can come up with the key for this character. But again, every other thing being equal, I don't see him making a very good movie villain. But the right scribe writes it with a fresh idea for him, maybe it could be glorious. All right, next up. Jake C. writes, I won't get you one of two. I won't get you started on CW jobbing Superman, but rewatching the crossovers, I've noticed something. Whenever the show says that Kara is better and more important than Superman, I don't even believe it in the context of the Arrowverse. Two of two, Superman alone could read the Book of Destiny in Elseworlds and literally reshaped reality back to normal. At the end, he's like, we couldn't have done it without you, Kara. I strongly disagree, LOL. Listen, and you are pushing buttons here, Jake. You're pushing buttons when you get me started about the way the CW treats Superman. You know what? I will spare you my outraged rant again of how the CW treats the character of Superman. I won't go into it all again. You have heard me bitch and moan and whine and complain about it enough times. I won't go into it all again. But I don't know, man. I see what you're saying too. I do. And there's validity to what you're saying. I agree. But this, it just feels like at every step of the way, the only way they can get people to buy into Kara is to make Superman be humbled. And it's frustrating to me because there are 3 characters in the DC universe you do not do that with. I get it. Jobbing is an important part of storytelling. I get it. But to me, there are 3 untouchable characters that you bow your head and bend the knee when you're talking about these characters, and you treat them with respect in the term and in the confines of a DC universe. The 3 untouchable characters that cannot job are Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. You cannot job those characters. You can have one of them lose in a fight to one of the other Holy Trinity. That's fine. Wonder Woman beats Batman. Okay. Batman beats Superman. Okay. Superman beats Wonder Woman. Okay. You want to do one of those, that's fine because that's the Holy Trinity, but you do not job Wonder Woman, Superman, or Batman to any other characters in the DCEU ever. And I said I wasn't going to go off on my rant again, and I'm catching myself going off on a rant again, so I'm going to pump the brakes on it. But anyway, yeah, that's just it gets me so pissed off. Okay, let's see here. Let's move on, shall we? Johnny 5 writes, my watch at home recommendation is Winchester 73 starring Jimmy Stewart. He wins a prized rifle that's stolen by murderous fugitive, and the gun exchanges hands numerous times during pursuit. A surprising reveal and shootout makes this Western worth it. You know what? I was about to say I haven't seen that one, but I think I might have. No. I'm thinking of a horror movie. I'm thinking of something completely different. I don't know that I've seen this one, Johnny 5. That sounds like a great little recommendation, because I'm like a lot of people, I'm big on Jimmy Stewart, and I don't think I've seen that one. I'm going to have to go back and check that one out. Maybe I'll realize I have, but I don't think I've seen that one. Nice recommendation. That sounds great. Okay. The Nerd Errant writes, let's see where we go here. There it is. Nerd Errant writes, to John and Co, do any of you now wince when you see a scene where people are toilet papering a place? I saw one and thought, what a waste. You guys are going to need that later. No, it's funny you mentioned that, because we watched Bumblebee the other day, because Corey was here and she had never seen Bumblebee, and we're all just kind of locked down. So we thought, let's put on Bumblebee, because me and Ann love that movie. And there comes that scene in Bumblebee where they're TPing the place. But no, I got to say, it never did. And by the way, we're starting to see, at least where I live, we're starting to see it hit back on the shelves again. So it's just, there's been plenty of toilet paper out there. It's just been a logistics things about getting it out to the stores. But apparently that's starting to turn around. But no, I never did have that feeling. Although I could see why you would, though. I could see why you would. All right. Nerd Errant also writes, in Independence Day, the president took up being a fighter pilot again in the climax. I remember this got laughed at by many critics. Yesterday, the Prime Minister of Ireland announced he was reactivating himself as a doctor. Life imitates art. Yeah, and listen, I'll say this for Independence Day, too. They set up the stage properly, because they literally said, we don't have enough pilots. And the president's like, well, I'm an Air Force fighter pilot. I need to get in the plane. To me, it made sense. Like, they set up the narrative in such a way that it actually made sense. So I personally bought into it, and it worked for me. But yeah, you're seeing a doctor doing doctors again. I mean, actually, the UK Prime Minister's in hospital right now as a thing of that. But no, I agree, Nerd. I never blinked at that. I never blinked at it because it was a desperate situation, and they set it up that we've got more planes than pilots. He's like, well, I was a great Navy fighter pilot. I need to get in the plane. Made sense to me. Made sense to me. All right. Casinema Reviews writes, watch The Nice Guys yesterday. Nice. You're right. It's so good and easily could have been a franchise. Crowe and Gosling were so great and had great chemistry. God, man, whenever I think of, like, when you think of a great movie, you want to feel happy. When I think of Nice Guys, I feel a little bit of sadness because it never got the love it deserved. And it should have been a little franchise. It should have been a little two-part or maybe even a trilogy of films. What Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling are so good in that movie and have such great chemistry, and Shane Black did such a great job writing, directing that movie. That movie is great. And nobody went to go see it. And I'm glad. Good on you, Casinema. Good on you for picking it up and giving it a watch. Guys, seriously, watch The Nice Guys. It's not the greatest film of all time, but it's a really good little movie that I thought was a really special film. I wish more people had seen it. Thanks for watching, Casinema. All right, Ethan Holgate writes, hey, John, do you think Michael Bay could direct a mafia movie, not classic style like The Godfather, more like R-rated violent action mafia movie his way? Well, I mean, the real answer to that question, Ethan, is anybody can. Anybody could direct that movie. It doesn't mean it'll be good, but they could direct it and maybe it'll be good. Any director could step in and do that. Is Michael Bay capable of that? Sure he is. Look, as much as everybody craps on Michael Bay, the fact of the matter is he's made some good movies, man. He's made some good movies. Would it be good? Oh, I don't know that I'd say that. Can it be good? Could be. Never know. But there are a lot of directors who could potentially step in and do something like that and do it. Whether it's a good idea or not, it would all depend on the concept of the script and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I listen, if they announced tomorrow that Michael Bay was doing a movie like that, I wouldn't object to it. I'd be curious to see how it would turn out. Not necessarily the first director I would hire if I'm a studio to do it, but if he was picked, yeah, okay. I'd give that one a shot. Why not? All right. 24 Savage writes, what would have flopped harder, Trolls or Artemis? Ooh. They would both flop hard. I think Artemis might have, I'm going to guess Artemis would have flopped a little hard. See, here's the thing. We were close enough to Trolls release date that we already saw the tracking numbers, and it was tracking to make less than half of what Trolls 1 made on its opening weekend. So that was clearly going to bomb hard. I have a feeling Artemis might have flopped even harder. Luke1234 writes, in what order would you release these to your fans if you had to? The Anniversary, Rise of the Trades, Tradiz, by the way, Tradiz, or your breakdancing videos. I would probably release the Anniversary because I've already released the Anniversary to my Patreon supporters. Our Patreon supporters had the pleasure, or the horror, depending on how you look at it, of watching my movie, Rise, or The Anniversary. I will not ever release Rise of the Trades. I don't even let my wife watch it again. I've hid the disc from my wife. I won't even let my wife watch it again. So no, that one's never coming out, but probably The Anniversary. The Anniversary is one I might release at some point, but for now it's just for our Patreon supporters. All right. James McLeod writes, love the show. Thank you so much, James. With Lockup, showed my little brother some gems. Back to the Future 1, nice. Dumb and Dumber, nice. Flash Season 1, Dodgeball. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Anchorman, Austin Powers, and Uncle Buck. John Candy again. Glad I own 808 titles to show him. Canadian Kids, P.S. all Blu-rays and DVDs. Well, first of all, those are some greats. Dodgeball and Anchorman are two of the comedies in my top 10 favorite comedies of all time. I love both of them. Dodgeball is so fantastic. More people need to watch Dodgeball. That movie is hilarious today because nobody makes me bleed my own blood. I love that movie, and Anchorman, Austin Powers. That's a great list, James, and that's a good use of time, man. Getting your little brother caught up on that stuff. That's some good sibling work right there, my friend. That's some good sibling work. All right, Mandalorian of Gondor writes, who would you marry, date, and have one night stand with out of these 3 female villains if you dared? Syl from Species. TX from T3 from Terminator 3, and Santanico from Dusk Till Dawn. I've never been able to pronounce that name. A friend shot me this question, and it's quite difficult. Ooh. Marry, date, one night stand with. Well, Syl from Species, the one night stand leads to you dying. But then again, that would also mean dating would lead to dying and marry. So maybe if you could get out as soon as the one night stand was done, we'll go Syl from Species. Marry TX from T3, but only if, she got reprogrammed a little bit. And then date Santanico, probably the one I date. I could regret all three of those choices, though. Could end up regretting all three of those choices. All right, Chris Warden writes, one of two. I know it's only early April, but it really hasn't sunk in for what we're not going to get actual summer movie season this year. Maybe August can be saved, but that's the best case scenario right now. Summer is my favorite time of year for movies, and there's usually at least one film out every week that I want to see, but it's not likely to happen this year, this sex. Oh, and yeah, absolutely, Chris. I mean, it is. And now look, we understand, again, I have to keep repeating this. We all understand, all of us film fans, we all understand. There are far bigger, more important consequences going on in the world as a result of the situation. We know that. We know that there are much more important things. We get that. But here, on this one particular show, we're here to speak specifically about the experiences of being a film fan, about movies and film fans. And within that limited context, yeah, man, that's what sucks the most. For us film fans, at any rate. Is, we're getting into the season when a lot of the big movies, like the best movies usually come out at the end of the year for the Oscars, but the ones we generally get most excited about, this is when they start to come out. And it is really unfortunate, Chris, that we're probably not going to have that summer movie season this year. And that sucks, and it is what it is. But hey, you know what? At least those movies aren't going away, right? We're going to get those movies at some point. And the next summer, we'll have our summer again. But right now, it does really kind of... I'm fit. Dude, every day I wake up and I say to Ann, man, I wish I could go to the movies today. I wish I could go to the movies. I like watching movies at home. That's good. But it's not going to the movies. And I miss it a lot. And I'm looking forward to that coming back whenever it does. All right, thanks for writing that in, Chris. All right, Daniel Rahimi writes, finished playing Jedi Fallen Order. Wow, what a game. This game is so much better than the Disney Star Wars movies combined. I disagree, but whatever. Hopefully, they'll come out with a part 2 to the game. And if they do, which direction would you like to see the heroes go? I never play the game of what I want them to do with the next movie, the next game, whatever. I just want to see what it is they want to do. But the game was great. My one knock on the game, and I was so glad to hear other players say this to me, so I knew it wasn't just me, it's a very difficult game. Like my buddy Ryan, who just plays games incessantly, he was like, yeah, I nearly just threw my whole PS4 out the window and gave up on the game because it's really a difficult game. So I was very happy to hear that it wasn't just me. But it's a great little story. It's a great little story. As good as the new movies, no. Better than Rise of Skywalker, sure, I'll give it that, maybe. But it is a great little game. I had a lot of fun with it. And I never completed the game, but I did watch the whole cinematic cut of the movie of the game. And it was really good. It was very good, very creative. I liked it. All right, Mandalorian of Gondor writes, who would you go see a movie with, have a beer with, and go to a sports game with out of these three wonderful people? Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men, Alonzo Harris from Training Day, and Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. Okay. Patrick Bateman, I could have a beer with. Training Day, can't go to a movie with because he's too loud. So go to a sports game with because he'd probably be very loud and boisterous in the game. King Kong ain't got nothing on that quarterback or something like that, right? So that would be fun there. And Anton, because being quiet is his thing, so I think probably sitting in a movie theater, probably the best thing to do. As long as he's not carrying around like some calf stunner, pretty good to go. So quiet movie theater's best for Anton. Big sports event, I think Alonzo would be good in there. Quick beer with, not at his place, Patrick Bateman. So that's how I'd break that down. All right, interesting question. All right. Let's see here. Chris Warden writes. Oh, that was Chris. We already got Chris Warden. AD writes, I love the original Star Wars trilogy, but if I had one wish, I would wish to see Luke/Vader fight with today's special effects. Is there any action beat from the past movie that you'd want to see with today's technology? I'll tell you what, the Vader-Luke fight, nothing has ever touched it. Because here's the thing, I always complain about action without narrative purpose is just visual noise. A great example of that is a lot of the Transformers movies. There's all this huge action going on, but none of it has narrative purpose, and none of it has any emotional pull to it, and therefore it's just visual noise. It's just bleh, right? The lightsaber fight between Vader and Luke is filled with so much drama, and there's so much going on an emotional level, and it plays out in every move in the fight. Even from the ways that they fight is all tied to the emotional hook of the story and what's going on in the story. And that's why, to me, my favorite movie scene in history is the Emperor Throne Room in Return of the Jedi. From the music, the narrative that's going on, the action, which plays perfectly to the narrative, I wouldn't change a single element of that. Not a thing. And it's kind of funny, too, because I still to this day believe that the space battle in Empire Strikes Back is the greatest space battle of any film ever, and that includes with all the new technology and everything. So, yeah. However, when I talk about a sci-fi kind of movie that I would love to see rebooted today, because I think it would benefit so much from current visual effects technology, I always go back to one film, The Last Starfighter. The Last Starfighter is a movie that, first of all, that is just so great, but and that movie was way ahead of its time. Because with the popularity of video games today, now is the time for a Last Starfighter reboot. And it is a movie that would so benefit from updated visual effects and all that kind of stuff and slightly different story angles that they could take. Perfect for it. So that's the one I'll go with, AD. I'll go Last Starfighter. All right, Joe Hill writes, watch 21 Bridges. I thought Boseman and Simmons' performances were spectacular, but the script needed a lot of work and the story was pretty generic. Overall, I'd say 6 out of 10. What are your thoughts? I hope this doesn't reflect the Russo brothers' future. I was not impressed with the movie. I thought it wasn't terrible, but I thought it was poor. Now, you can expect good performances from these actors, obviously, but the movie was poor. And it is unfortunate that it was the first movie produced by the Russo brothers, now with their new production banner, after leaving the MCU and blah, blah, blah. Now, they didn't direct it, but they are the production company. It's their movie. It's their movie. And what I want to see, now you guys know I have had the Russo brothers in my studio on a couple of occasions. I love these guys. I think they are great. And they have done an amazing job with the films they have directed in the MCU. That being said, I think it is fair to ask how much of that was the Russo brothers and how much of that was the Russo brothers working with Kevin Feige. And I'm not willing to write them off because of the first movie out of the gate, 21 Bridges, but 21 Bridges is, in my opinion, a bad film. And they were in charge of that film. And yeah, so let's see how the next couple of films do. We will see. But I'm cheering for them because I think these guys are great. And for both as directors and just on a personal level, they're so friendly. They're so open with their notions even of storytelling. I just love these guys, and I hope they succeed on every single freaking level. All right, let's see. Anthony Lucolano writes, I watched this South Korean period war film last night called The Great Battle, and I ended up quite liking it. It's on Netflix and possibly Amazon Prime. Definitely check it out, my fellow filthies. I am not familiar with this one, although watch, this is probably going to be one of those ones that I have seen. I just don't remember it at all. So The Great Battle. IMDb. Let me just look this up here. Oh, it's not an older film. Okay, it was sounding like that was an older film. It's a newer film. Okay. No, I'm not familiar with this one. Although Sung-woo Park is in it, and I've seen him in a number of things. Okay. All right. Okay, just the poster looks badass. Okay, it says, a historical film about the siege of Ansi Fortress and the epic 88-day battle that Yang Manchu and his Goguryeo troops fought against 500,000 invading Tang Dynasty men to defend it. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. That sounds pretty damn cool. I think I am going to have to check that one out. Thank you for putting that on the radar, Anthony, because that sounds great. Let's see here. Elijah Anderson writes, hey, John, hope you're staying safe. I am. Thank you so much. If by some miracle the theaters do reopen in July, would it even be a good idea to go? I think so. Listen, if the movie theaters open again in July, which obviously there are some people who feel like it will, that's still over 3 months away, so we're fine. If they open back up again, that means the government is like, okay, it's okay to go back out again. I would go. I would be smarter about it. I would probably, bring sanitizer with me. Hell, I might even wear a mask. I don't know, but I would probably go, because if they're open, that means the government says they can be open. And the government's not going to say they can be open unless restaurants are also okay to be open. And parks are also okay to be open. I think there are going to be people who are cautious. But remember, if it's not okay, they're not going to let them open yet. So my belief right now is that if they sound the all clear and it's cool to open back up again, I say still be a little bit more extra cautious. But I would go. I wouldn't go today. I wouldn't go tomorrow. But if by that time comes around, if they sound the all clear, then yeah, I'll go. I'll be a little bit more cautious. But I would probably go. But again, that's months away. Months away. Ask me that again in 2 weeks when we see how things are evolving. I might give you a completely different answer. It's a good question, though, Elijah. All right. Justin, the movie nerd, writes, with no theaters open, I have the opportunity to catch up on films I've yet to see. It's a good use of your time right now, man. I've decided to focus on one specific director every week. That's a neat way of doing it. This week is Federico Fellini. Watch 8.5. Also selected La Strada, Knights of Caribbean, and La Dolce Vita. Listen, I think, look, we're all looking for ways right now to try to, how do we make lemonade out of these lemons? We're all facing that question. And getting back and watching some classic movies is a good idea. I think this idea, Justin, of giving yourself a theme every week by the films of this director, that's fabulous. Because that means you're going to put films in your rotation that you probably wouldn't have with any other theme, right? I think that's a great idea. That's some good thinking there, man. I like that. All right. Guys, we're already past 11 o'clock, so we need to wrap up today. Sorry about that. But we do need to wrap up today. Guys, everybody else who has sent in a question, from Lonzo, Brian Paz, and everybody moving on forward from that, do not worry. Your questions are getting answered in a companion video. Keep your eyes open for it. We'll get around to your questions, but unfortunately, we've run past our time. Guys, I want to remind you right now that later today at 2 p.m., at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, that's 3 hours from now, if you are so available, we are going to be doing a live streaming watch party. And we're going to watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Again, check my Twitter anytime after 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for the link to the watch party. You have to, number one, have Netflix, obviously. And number two, you need to install the Netflix Party app, which you can go to www.netflixparty.com and get the extension plugged in, all that kind of stuff. So I hope that you guys will come and join me then. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Don't forget, we will be back. Me and Robert will be back again tomorrow. I hope you guys come and join us. Guys, in the meantime, do me a favor, click the thumbs up button on this video, and also make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel as well. Guys, thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. A special thank you to all of you guys who sent in the questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. Number two, you supported the channel while you were doing it, and all of us here, from me, Robert, fact checker Jonathan, Ray, Aaron, everybody involved with the channel, we all thank you very much for that. Okay, guys. That will do it for me for now. Thanks a lot for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, guys, bye-bye.